The low hum of conversation and the clink of glass filled the dimly lit space of Jake's bar, a local haunt on the outskirts of a sleepy town. As the neon sign flickered outside, casting a lurid glow through the grimy windows, Mike Henderson took his usual seat in a secluded corner. The bar was a refuge of sorts, a place where he could blend into the background and watch the world go by, one glass at a time. Mike, a veteran with a quiet demeanor and a watchful gaze, nursed his drink, the ice clinking softly against the glass. He was a regular here, known for his reserved nature and the unspoken rule. Mike was to be left to his own devices. However, this unspoken rule was about to be challenged. The evening was progressing like any other, until the rumble of motorcycles disrupted the peace. The Skulls, a notorious local biker gang known for their unruly behavior, swaggered into the bar, leather jackets creaking and boots thudding against the wooden floor. The gang had a reputation, and their arrival was like a cold wind sweeping through the room, causing a noticeable shift in the atmosphere. Rick, the gang's leader, a burly man with tattoos snaking up his arms and a sneer perpetually etched on his face, scanned the bar. His eyes landed on Mike, and a malicious grin spread across his lips. "Look what we have here, boys," he announced loudly, "the Silent Warrior." The gang laughed as they made their way to the bar, ordering drinks and making a show of their presence. Rick's eyes, however, remained fixed on Mike. Sensing an easy target for their evening's entertainment, he sauntered over to Mike's table, leaning down to invade his personal space. "Got any war stories for us, Grandpa?" he taunted, his breath reeking of alcohol. Mike looked up, his expression unreadable. "Not interested in talking?" he replied quietly, hoping to end the conversation there. But Rick was undeterred. With a cruel smirk, he pushed Mike's drink off the table, shattering the glass against the floor. The sound of breaking glass cut through the murmur of the bar like a gunshot. "Oops," Rick chuckled. "Guess you'll need another drink, hero." The bar fell silent, the tension palpable. Mike's jaw clenched, his hands tightening into fists beneath the table. Yet, he remained seated, his discipline holding back the tide of anger. Years of combat had taught him that not every battle was worth fighting, especially those provoked in drunken bravado. As Rick's laughter echoed mockingly in his ears, Mike's resolve was tested. He breathed deeply, counting to 10, his gaze fixed on a stain on the bar floor, anything to keep from striking out. Just as Rick was about to push further, a new figure stepped into the bar. The door swung open, admitting a gust of cold night air, and a man whose presence seemed to command immediate attention. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a bearing that spoke of military precision and confidence. His eyes quickly assessed the situation, a frown forming as he took in the scene before him. "Is there a problem here, Rick?" The newcomer's voice boomed across the bar, clear and authoritative. Rick turned, his smirk fading as he met the gaze of the newcomer. His cockiness waned under the scrutiny of those piercing eyes. "No problem, just having a little chat with our old friend here," he said, his voice losing some of its earlier bravado. The newcomer walked over, his steps measured and calm. Standing beside Mike, he placed a hand on his shoulder, a silent show of solidarity. "Why don't you leave the man alone?" he suggested, though it sounded more like an order. As Rick sized up the newcomer, recognizing perhaps something familiar in his stance or the set of his jaw, he nodded slowly, gesturing for his gang to back off. "All right this time," he conceded, the gang reluctantly following him back to their part of the bar. Mike exhaled, his relief palpable. He looked up at his savior, his features softening. "Jimmy?" he asked, disbelief coloring his tone. "Yeah, it's me," Jimmy replied with a grin, pulling up a chair. "Looks like I got here just in time." As the two old friends settled down, the bar returning to its usual hum, there was a sense of an unbreakable bond rekindled. Outside, the neon sign flickered once more, casting light on faces that bore the marks of past battles and the quiet strength of enduring brotherhood. As the bar's patrons cautiously resumed their conversations, Mike and Jimmy sat in their reclaimed corner, the clatter of glasses and the low murmur of the bar, providing a familiar backdrop to their reunion. Jimmy, still wearing his travel-worn leather jacket, signaled the bartender for a couple of drinks, his eyes never straying far from Mike, assessing him with a mix of concern and relief. "So man, it's been what, over a decade?" Jimmy's voice was tinged with disbelief, a smile creeping across his face as he leaned back in his chair, studying his old friend. I heard you settled down around here, but I wasn't expecting to find you like this. Mike managed a wry smile, the tension slowly draining from his body. Yeah, life takes turns you don't always see coming, he responded, his voice low. He glanced around the bar, then back at Jimmy. What brings you to this part of the world? It's not exactly vacation territory. Just passing through, Jimmy replied, shrugging. I'm on a road trip trying to clear my head. You know how it is, but let's talk about you. How have you been, really? The conversation deepened as the two veterans reconnected, sharing stories of their lives after service. Mike spoke of his struggles with adjusting to civilian life, the challenges that came with leaving the structured world of the military, and how he ended up in the small town, seeking a quiet existence that seemed increasingly elusive. Jimmy listened intently, his expression a mixture of empathy and anger as he learned about the harassment Mike endured. You shouldn't have to put up with that crap, especially not here, not from punks like those bikers, he said, his jaw tightening. You served your country. You deserve respect. The bartender brought their drinks, and for a moment, they paused, the clink of the glassware providing a momentary distraction. They clinked their glasses in a silent toast to old times and new beginnings. Remember back in '09, that mess in Helmand? Jimmy suddenly asked, a ghost of a smile appearing as he recounted one of their more harrowing missions. The story shifted the mood, drawing them back to a time when they had relied on each other for survival, their bond forged in the fire of combat. Yeah, I remember, Mike said, laughing softly. I saved your ass from that ambush. And I never forgot it, Jimmy replied, his tone serious now. Which means I'm here for you, just like you were there for me. We look out for each other, no matter what. The night wore on, and as they shared more stories, the weight of the years seemed to lift slightly from Mike's shoulders. It was as if revisiting their shared past reminded him of the strength he still possessed, the resilience that no amount of civilian hardship could erode. As the bar began to close, the two veterans prepared to leave, their spirits buoyed by the rekindled connection. As they stood up, Jimmy clapped Mike on the back, a brotherly gesture filled with warmth. Let's not wait another decade to do this again, okay? Jimmy said, grinning. And hey, if those bikers give you any more trouble, you call me. I'm not that far away. Mike nodded, a genuine smile breaking through his usually stoic demeanor. I will. Thanks, Jimmy, for everything. They stepped out into the cool night, the air crisp and clear. As they went their separate ways, there was a sense of peace, a feeling that no matter the struggles Mike faced, he wasn't alone. He had a brother in arms, a bond unbroken by time or distance. The night after Jimmy left was quieter than usual. Mike felt a renewed sense of strength and purpose as he returned to the bar, not out of habit, but with a clear intention to close this chapter of his life on his own terms. The bar's atmosphere felt charged, as if everyone sensed a subtle shift in the air. As Mike entered, the regular patrons, now familiar with his recent standoff, nodded respectfully. The barkeep, a grizzled old man named Carl, poured him a drink without a word, his eyes reflecting a newfound respect. News of Jimmy's intervention and the rekindled brotherhood between the two veterans had circulated, changing the dynamics in the small community. Mike took his usual corner, his back to the wall, a strategic position that allowed him a full view of the room. His eyes were calm but vigilant, scanning the crowd, always alert. It wasn't long before the door swung open to admit the familiar rumble of the Skull's biker gang. The mood shifted tangibly, a current of tension running through the bar as patrons braced for potential trouble. Rick led his gang in, his swagger slightly diminished from their last encounter. His eyes found Mike immediately, a flicker of uncertainty in his gaze. However, propelled by the need to maintain his image, he approached Mike, his gang flanking him. Look, man, Rick started, his voice louder than necessary. About the other night, Mike raised his hand, stopping him mid-sentence. He stood, facing Rick squarely. I'm not looking for trouble, he stated clearly, but I won't be pushed around. This is my town too. The gang members shifted uncomfortably, exchanging glances. The bar fell silent, everyone watching the unfolding drama. Rick, sensing the shift in public opinion and recognizing his diminished standing, nodded slowly. All right, he conceded, the fight going out of him. No hard feelings, man. No hard feelings, Mike echoed, his voice firm. As the bikers retreated to a table, a palpable sense of relief swept through the bar. Mike sat down, his posture relaxed for the first time in weeks. Carl brought over another drink, this time on the house, his nod acknowledging Mike's quiet victory. The night progressed peacefully, and as the bar eventually emptied, Mike and Carl found themselves alone, closing up. "You did good, Mike," Carl said, wiping down the counter. "It takes guts to stand up like that." Mike smiled slightly, his thoughts drifting to Jimmy. "Had a good teacher," he replied. Later, walking home under the stars, Mike reflected on the events that had unfolded. He realized that standing up for himself had rekindled a part of him that he thought was lost. The brotherhood with Jimmy, the respect of the townsfolk, and his own inner strength had merged to remind him that he was not just a veteran or a victim of circumstances, but a man of resilience and dignity. As he reached his modest home, Mike paused at the door, taking a deep breath of the crisp night air. He felt a peace he hadn't known in years, a sense of being anchored and a part of something larger than himself. Inside, he found an old photo album, flipping through pictures of his military days, each image a testament to the journey he had survived. With a sense of closure and a renewed spirit, Mike knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he was ready to face them, bolstered by the unbreakable bonds of friendship and a community that had shown him that even in the darkest times, light could be found.